In a bid to curb the spread of COVID-19 among household members, the Interior Department is urging the public to wear face masks even in the comfort of their homes. And it was not a smooth sailing dry run for the Education Department's blended learning program earlier today. But Education Secretary Leonor Briones insists the same could not be said once actual classes begin come August 24. Malacanang is leaving it to the IATF to assess the proposed one-month extension of modified ECQ in Metro Manila. Palace spokesman Harry Roque said there should be a balance between ensuring people's safety and saving the country's economy. He also noted that it may take some time before we see the effects of the reimposition of MECQ in the region and nearby areas. Apart from NCR, also placed under stricter quarantine protocols until August 18 are Cavite, Laguna, Rizal, and Bulacan. For the Health Department, it is too early to assess if the two-week modified ECQ was effective. For now, the agency sets aside a budget as it prepares for the trial of possible COVID-19 vaccine. Gerard de la Peña will tell us more.
This is a mega quarantine facility located at the heart of Bagong Nayong Pilipino, a 2-hectare reclaimed land at the entertainment city of Parañaque. The 525-bed COVID-19 facility will be the biggest so far in Metro Manila. The government aims to open the isolation center on August 25 for mild and asymptomatic patients. Vince Dizon, COVID-19 Response Deputy Chief Implementer, said this is in preparation for the expected spike in COVID-19 cases as the government seeks to reopen the economy gradually.
In preparation din to na kapag nagbukas tayo muli from MECQ, bumalik tayo ng GCQ, and eventually pagpupunta ang Greater Metro Manila sa MGCQ.
But that has yet to be decided. The Health Department says it's too early to assess if the two-week MECQ was effective.
We are looking at 2 weeks after or 3 weeks after before we can see the effect of this lockdown that we have done.
For now, the agency has set aside 2.4 billion pesos under the 2021 national budget to ensure that at least 20% of the population will receive vaccines once they become available. The DOH said the country will begin the clinical trials of anti-flu drug Avigan on COVID-19 patients starting August 17. The agency is also willing to cooperate for the proposed creation of a virology institute. Meanwhile, the omnibus guidelines for testing is also being finalized. Assistant Secretary Maria Rosario Vergeres suggested that there is no need to ban rapid testing despite its accuracy issues.
Pwedeng gamitin ang rapid antibody test dun sa mga pasyente na nakaka-recover na or pwede nang matag as recovered. Kasi on the 21st day of the illness of a patient, accurate na or sensitive na ang rapid antibody test.
The DOH, however, maintains that RT-PCR testing remains the gold standard in coronavirus testing. For News 5, Gerard de la Peña, we are One News.
The Health Department says there will be a delay in the release of case tally due to a system error. The daily bulletin was supposed to be released at 4 p.m. today, but it was issued at around 8 this evening. However, the DOH assures the public that it will take measures to prevent this in the near future. The House of Representatives votes 242 to 6 to pass on final reading the proposed Bayanihan to Recover as one bill. That's after no less than President Duterte asked Congress to expedite the measure's passage. Ria Fernandez with the story.
The House of Representatives appropriated 162 billion pesos worth of standby fund under its Bayanihan to Recover as one bill. Also known as Bayanihan 2, the measure aims to provide support to workers and industries who have borne the brunt of the pandemic's economic impact. A huge chunk of the fund will go to loans and recovery programs for small businesses. There will also be allocation for PhilHealth's COVID testing and treatment, as well as the needs of health workers. It will likewise cover the anti-COVID vaccine once it becomes available. Education stakeholders, meanwhile, are assured of financial assistance as the blended learning setup is put in place. Lawmakers initially initially wanted bigger funding to address COVID-19. But due to limited resources, they decided to pass Bayanihan 2 as is and rather work on other measures that will ensure continuity of COVID response programs. Earlier today, the House Tax Panel approved the Guide Bill, or the Government Financial Institutions Unified Initiatives to Distressed Enterprises for Economic Recovery. House Speaker Alan Peter Cayetano took a swipe at Deputy Minority Leader Carlos Zarate, who earlier expressed concern that Bayanihan 2 funds could be used to fuel the campaign of administration allies if not properly audited.
Kung sila nagagalit sa red tagging, 'di ba? I think it's unfair na mag-election tagging sa lahat. Kasi kahit ano namang programa ng gobyerno, pwede mong sabihin, pwedeng gamitin sa eleksyon. But that's not the issue. The issue is whether or not maganda yung mga programa na yon. So, if you look, yung Bayanihan 1, may 200 billion sa ayuda. Pwede rin gamitin sa eleksyon yon, pero natuwa ba tao? Nagalit nga ang tao.
To which Zarate responded,
It's very easy to say, meron namang oversight function ng Kongreso. No? But sa realidad, fully exercised po ng Kongreso talaga yung kanyang oversight function.
For News 5, Ria Fernandez, we are One News.
Now, over in Quezon City, the local government will be rolling out an economic recovery plan. Mayor Jose Del Monte said that they will launch the economic recovery plan once Metro Manila shifts to GCQ. She adds that Quezon City has allotted 1 billion peso stimulus package for affected MSMEs to help them cope amid the health crisis.
This is a wage subsidy program that we are giving to all qualified applicants para hindi po sila mawalan ng negosyo or ng kanilang pangkabuhayan at hindi rin sila magle-lay off ng kanilang Quezon City-based workers. No?
The SWS releases the result of a survey on who is more responsible for solving the COVID-19 crisis in the country. The study shows that 60% of adult Filipinos believe it is the national government. 23%, on the other hand, say it should be the local government units, while 14% noted that both are just equally responsible. The survey was conducted last July using mobile phone and computer-assisted telephone interviewing. We'll pause for a short break, but when the big story returns, lawmakers said the medical condition of PhilHealth officials can't bail them out of tomorrow's Senate inquiry or any charges they might be facing thereafter. And a city in Bulacan is dead serious about their hard lockdown as returning residents are barred from re-entering the city in light of the 8-day lockdown. I'm Jose De Los Santos, and you're watching The Big Story. COVID-19 cases in the country surged to over 136,000 today. This as the Health Department reported almost 7,000 new COVID-19 cases. There are now 66,000 active cases in the country. 24 additional COVID-19 deaths were also recorded today, pushing the death toll to almost 2,300. Over 68,000 people have recovered from the SARS-like disease, with around 600 new recoveries reported today. And there's no stopping senators from getting into the bottom of the alleged corruption in PhilHealth. That's despite at least two key PhilHealth officials begging off from physically attending the Senate inquiry slated on Tuesday. Man Los Baños tells us more.
PhilHealth President and CEO Ricardo Morales won't be able to face head-on the various corruption allegations being thrown at the agency and its officials. PhilHealth spokesperson Dr. Shirley Dominguez says Morales is set to go on a 2-week leave as he undergoes a series of treatments for his lymphoma or cancer.
It was confirmed early this year, around February, ang sabi niya. And after that, several months after, nag-start na siya ng kanyang chemotherapy. So far, hindi naman yan naging sagabal sa pagtrabaho niya. In fact, in spite of his chemotherapy, pumapasok siya parate.
Last week, Morales' attending physician sent a copy of his medical certificate to the Senate, advising him to go on leave while undergoing chemotherapy. In a separate statement, Morales lamented that his privacy was not respected when news of his health condition came out. But Senate President Tito Soto said this for a clapback.
That if you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen. You're holding a very important public office and then tinatago mo yung health mo. Okay ba yun? That's the question that is begged to be answered.
He added that Morales' medical leave won't stop the Senate inquiry into the embattled agency, as well as the filing of charges against erring PhilHealth officials. But it's not just Morales who can't make it to the Senate hearing physically. Likewise, citing a medical emergency, PhilHealth Executive Vice President and COO Arnel De Jesus said he will not be able to attend the Tuesday hearing. His medical certificate stated that De Jesus was admitted in a hospital since August 5 due to acute coronary syndrome, hypertensive heart disease, and diabetes type 2. The Senate leadership stood firm that the hearing will push through on Tuesday, with 1 or 2 witnesses expected to testify against the so-called PhilHealth mafia. Representatives from the Commission on Audit and Presidential Anti-Corruption Commission are likewise invited. A source told News 5 that among the possible witnesses tomorrow is Etrobal Laborte, former head executive assistant to Morales. That's despite earlier reports that he has backed out from testifying in the Senate probe. For News 5, Man Los Baños, we are One News.
Justice Secretary Menardo Guevara advises embattled PhilHealth officials to voluntarily go on leave. In a text message, Guevara said officials whose operations are under special audit should take a leave of absence so that investigators can freely proceed with their inquiry. He said the Data Privacy Act may not be invoked in the conduct of government probes. Guevara said a team from the DOJ will convene today to finalize a strategy to be submitted to the task force, which Guevara himself will oversee. Meanwhile, presidential spokesperson Harry Roque said the task force may recommend the preventive suspension of any official to ensure that the probe will be unhampered. As for the hearings, the palace leaves it to the Senate whether to approve the request of some officials to skip the August 11 inquiry due to medical reasons. And these are the other big stories today. An Akpawis party list condemns the killing of its national chairperson Arandi Echaniz past midnight today. The group says police forces killed a 72-year-old NDFP consultant along with one of his neighbors inside a rented house in Novaliches, Quezon City. Echaniz was also the Deputy Secretary General of the Kilusang Magbubukid ng Pilipinas. The Foreign Affairs Department reports 5 more Filipinos injured following the blast in Beirut, Lebanon, which brings the total number of injured Filipinos to 47. The DFA is also preparing to bring home this week the remains of 4 Filipinos who died in the blast. 400 OFWs will also be repatriated through the DFA's chartered flight. And not even the heavy downpour could stop the Center for International Law from trooping to the Supreme Court to file a petition against the Anti-Terror Act. This is the 27th petition asking the High Court to declare the measure as unconstitutional. Joining Center Law's co-petitioners are Vera Files, the Foundation for Media Alternatives, law professors from the Lyceum of the Philippines, and other journalists and lawyers. In a statement over the weekend, the coalition said 8 of the Act's 9 penal provisions are unconstitutional and violate fundamental rights, including free speech.
Ito pong hingi namin sa ating Supreme Court, sa ating kataas-taasang hukuman, na proteksyonan po nito ang mga karapatang pantao, lalo na po ang kapangyarihan ng West. Dahil kung hindi po, magiging matinding peligro ang Anti-Terror Act sa atin pong mga hukuman at mga West.
The local government of San Jose Del Monte, Bulacan reminded residents that they can still go out of the city, but they may only return once the 8-day lockdown is lifted. Jenny Dongon has a story.
Some residents of San Jose Del Monte, Bulacan who wanted to come home this morning pleaded to the PNP and AFP personnel to let them in, but authorities insisted that only doctors, trucks delivering essential goods, and those with medical emergencies are allowed to enter the city, which is now under a stricter 8-day MECQ. More than 50% of their COVID-19 patients are workers coming from NCR. Even one PNP personnel who is a resident of the city was not allowed to enter. He had no choice but to go back to Metro Manila. A Bureau of Fire Protection personnel was also asked to turn around. Anyone coming from NCR will have to undergo a 14-day home quarantine, so other essential workers just opted to go back where they came from. The LG reiterates they have given residents enough time to look for temporary homes while the city is under the strict MECQ protocol.
Mula noong Friday, ma'am, lahat po ng sasakyan po niyan ay pinaghaharang na po namin ng lahat yan. In-aware po namin sila, pinagsasabihan na ganito, bawal na po sa pagdating po ng midnight po ng linggo, bawal na pong pumasok at lumabas po. Kaya karamihan po dito ay alam na po nila.
Delivery riders also had to devise a system. Those from outside the city head to the boundary of Caloocan and San Jose Del Monte, where they will hand over the packages to fellow riders who live in San Jose Del Monte.
Sa kita pa lang namin kung nakakalabas kami ma'am, kita namin minsan sa 1.5, ganun. Ngayon, kikita lang siguro kami dito, mga 300 lang kasi hindi naman namin pwede presyahan sila ng malalaki.
The local government clarified that residents can still leave the city, but they won't be allowed to return until August 18. While the city is under stricter quarantine, officials will do contact tracing, testing, and also plan for another strategy to reduce transmission. On August 19, they will allow residents working in NCR to return home as soon as they submit required documents.
Yung lahat po ng APOR na hindi nakauwi ng kanilang mga residente, temperature check po natin yan. Meron pong APOR na pipilapan na form, medical certificate, yung kakakuha pa lang po nila, yung bago ba.
For News 5, Jenny Dongon, We Are One News.
Looking at other areas currently under MECQ, COVID-19 cases continue to rise in Laguna. The province has recorded over 4,000 confirmed cases so far. Officials say they're observing high transmission rates among factory workers in Laguna's industrial parks. Mayor Arlene Arcillas said some companies tested its employees without informing the local government. Those who tested positive were allegedly sent home without notifying authorities of their test results. In effect, the local government is now facing difficulties in conducting accurate contact tracing measures. Governor Ramil Hernandez said the provincial government will tighten the implementation of quarantine protocols and will add 3 more laboratories to increase their testing capacity. As of now, Laguna can process 2,000 COVID-19 tests per day. But Hernandez admitted that they are not keen on shutting down industrial parks where transmission rates are high.
Meron pong ang empleyado dyan 8,000, merong 5,000, merong 1,000. Sabihin na lang po natin 1,000 na lang per company. So 2.4 million po ang mawawala ng trabaho kung masasarap po yan.
Over in Quezon City, Mayor Joy Belmonte claims the city has been managing the crisis well. Belmonte says the 3 hospitals in Quezon City are not overburdened and can accept more COVID-19 patients if the need arises. Additionally, the local government recently deployed 700 individuals to form 90 contact tracing teams. But to strengthen their contact tracing efforts, Belmonte said the health department should provide a more comprehensive information of the city's confirmed patients. Coming up on the big story, as COVID-19 cases continue to rise, authorities are now suggesting the use of face masks even inside residences. And despite opposition from several groups, the DepEd says the resumption of classes will push through as scheduled. The details after the break. This is a big story, and I'm Jose Del Monte. Several government officials are urging the public to wear face masks even inside their homes to protect other members of the household from getting infected with COVID-19. Ryan Ang with the details.
As she goes to the market every day to buy essential goods, Genevieve has made it a habit to wear a face mask, not just when going out, but even inside their house.
Dula tayo, hindi tayo komportable sa loob ng bahay. Kaso kailangan natin po sir para safety talaga yung pamilya natin sa loob.
TJ and his wife, being both exposed to the virus as nurses in a public hospital, wear a different set of masks at home to protect their kids. For the couple, this, together with proper hygiene, should suffice inside the house as social distancing will be hard to implement.
Kaya yung social distancing talaga ay importante. Sa labas naman po ng bahay.
Ay hindi po sir, maiwasan po sir magdikit-dikit kasi minsan yung mga anak na ko, kausap ko, tapos yung asawa ko po.
Interior Secretary Eduardo Año recommended the wearing of face masks and observing social distancing at home to curb the spread of COVID-19. Based on their data, the virus is often caught in the workplace and outside homes, which may then be brought home, infecting family members. Just like the outbreak in Laguna, where factory employees who turned out positive were sent home by the company.
Pinauwi nila. No, pagdating naman sa bahay, hindi naman nag-ingat yung pasyente, no? Hindi naman nag-self-isolate, no? So kaya palaki ng palaki yung problema. Yan yung konteksto nung statement ng Secretary Año.
The DILG is asking the public to listen and be responsible.
Yung bahay is the first line of defense. So para hindi nyo mahawaan, para maging ligtas ang inyong pamilya, kailangan magso-social distancing din tayo at face mask kahit mahirap.
Gina disagreed, saying wearing a mask inside the house is unnecessary, given that she only lives with her husband.
Mas lalo ka hindi po kayo nakakahinga pag pag may mask pa sa loob ng bahay, lalo na pag marami po kayong ginagawa.
The Health Department encourages the wearing of face masks at home, especially if a family member is symptomatic or is part of the vulnerable population. For News 5, Ryan Ang, We Are One News.
Several teachers' groups are up in arms against the resumption of classes on August 24, but the Education Department says there's no way they'll call it off. Marian Enriquez has a report.
The reopening of classes will push through on August 24, come hell and high water. This is the Education Department's response to numerous calls from teachers' groups to postpone class resumption for the meantime. To prove they're ready to facilitate distance learning, DepEd held a virtual launch of its Handang Isip, Handang Bukas program. But a technical problem delayed the program for more than 2 hours. But for Secretary Leonor Briones, the program's glitch does not mean blended learning is bound to fail, as other modalities are available.
If all else fails,
then you have the printed modules. Hindi natin masasabi ay dahil may glitch kanina, therefore blended education will fail.
When the virtual dry run finally began, various regions showed how they will utilize platforms like radio, TV, online channels, and physical modules.
Yung August 24 has always been, we have never retreated, we have never changed that date because it is blended learning. It can be done with or without face-to-face.
But some teachers' groups are still apprehensive since they have yet to receive any learning modules from the DepEd. Teacher Chris Navales of the General Rojas Elementary School in Quezon City said they are now trying to source their own activity sheets, diagnostic tests, and textbooks that they can use in lieu of the ones promised by DepEd. DepEd explained they are still printing the modules while uploading online copies to the DepEd Commons. Undersecretary Revsi Escobedo says everything will be ready in time for the resumption of classes.
Most of them ay nasa 60 to 8 complete for the first quarter, and by August 24 ay ma-distribute ito sa mga schools.
But Secretary Briones admitted the delivery of modules to teachers in NCR and Region 4 might be delayed due to MECQ restrictions. While they are not against the agency's plans, Teachers Dignity Coalition said grievances of teachers should be heard.
Lahat po ng pagkukulang dito ng gobyerno, ng Department of Education, teacher ang magdudugtong, teacher ang magpupuno.
Briones says the government can't let the Philippines lag behind its regional peers like Singapore and Vietnam that have already resumed classes. For News 5, Marian Enriquez, we are One News.
Meralco rates will go down for the fourth straight month in August. The power distributor says overall rates for households will be reduced to 8 pesos and 49 cents per kilowatt hour from the 8 pesos and 69 centavos per kilowatt hour last month. This means that households consuming 200 kilowatts per hour will notice a decrease of around 41 pesos in their monthly bill. Meralco said that the reduction in power rates was driven by lower generation charges, among others. This is the lowest rate in nearly 3 years. The power distributor also reminds consumers that they have until end of September to settle their ECQ bills before they will be sent disconnection notices in October. Singaporeans can't stand too close now as automated drones start keeping an eye on them. Singapore's police have begun testing 2 pilotless drones to help enforce social distancing measures in the city. Developed by Israel's Aerobotics, the small machines are programmed to track gatherings and stream footage to the police. And be careful not to underestimate the drones, as they can pinpoint locations and zoom into areas that may not be visible to police officers on foot or in vehicles. And that wraps up today's big story. Catch us again tomorrow at 8 p.m. on Signal Channels 8 and 250. Please like our Facebook page, One News. For more in-depth analysis, visit our webpage, onenews.ph. You can also catch One News on the Signal Play app. Register for a free account now at signalplay.com and stream One News live anytime, anywhere. I'm Jose Del Monte and we are One News. Good evening.